Welcome to this episode of QI Corner. I'm 1031 Broker James, and along with me, my co-host, Mr. Greg Burns from IPX 1031. Hello, Greg.
Hey, how are you?
I am awesome. Let's go ahead and dive in. And so this episode, we're going to talk about something that came up just a few weeks ago, maybe a couple months ago. I share with you, I have a broker friend who lives in Florida. Him and his wife own a multifamily unit, and they've done really well with it. They bought it and did some great value upgrades. But now they are tired of being landlords to a 6-unit apartment complex and want to get rid of it. And fortunately for them, it has appreciated a little bit and enough to where an exchange makes sense. And as I was talking to him, he mentioned that he said, yeah, before I sell it, I want to do a quick refi on it because I could take out a lump of cash before I sell it. And I thought, that sounds interesting. And I was telling you about it. What did you tell me?
Yeah, so there's this particular doctrine within Section 1031. It's called the Step Transaction Doctrine, which basically says, like, if you take a step to take cash out of a sale, right, through refinance, and then immediately sell it, they could collapse your whole exchange. So, the question always becomes, refinance is, one of the benefits, owning real estate. It's a way you can get cash out without immediately having to pay taxes on it, right? But if you do that right before a sale and a 1031, you could be jeopardizing the entire exchange. So, the question always becomes like, how long do I need to, hold it and after I've refinanced it? I would say most tax practitioners like to see a year. Sometimes if you straddle tax years, that helps. So like if you refinance this year and then sold it in 26, that's also a benefit. But the other interesting thing is that we don't really see any issues refinancing and cashing out on the buy side as long as it's part of a separate transaction. And what I mean by that is you can't have like a magic button inside your existing loan to take cash out, right? So you can't get a loan that says, okay, we're going to give you a loan of $500,000. And then there's also a mechanism within that existing loan that allows you to access another, let's say, $500,000 through refinance. If you do that, then that could collapse the transaction as well. So you want to make sure that if you're refinancing after the transaction, you close, and then as part of a separate transaction, you do a refinance and you can pull some cash out then.
Yes, and I'm glad that you made that distinction because that's actually a strategy that I have shared with many of my clients where they're selling a significant sized asset, 3, 4, 5 million or more, and there's no debt. And they say, we'd really like to keep $500,000 or $1 million of the proceeds because we want to pay off the house or we want to pay off some debt or whatever. And I tell them, I say, well, I understand why you want to do that. However, if you take out $1 million, you're going to get the full capital gains tax rate on that $1 million, which means you're going to end up with significantly less than $1 million, probably 700,000 or less. So the strategy is similar to what you just said is let's do the exchange, get the property. I tell them, you know what, close on the transaction, get about 3 months worth of paper trail, get the rent coming in and all that for $1 million. If it's $1 million loan on a $5 million property, pretty much any bank will do that all day because it's a very small loan to value. Yeah. And then you get that $1 million tax free, and chances are very good the asset's going to pay for the debt service.
Right. Yeah. No, I had a client that was in that exact same boat. They were a husband and wife. The son was actually, quarterbacking the transaction. The parents were in Greece, in I think Mykonos, and they were retired. And he said, hey, my parents, they're going to take $2 million from the proceeds. They know they got to pay taxes on it. They don't care. They're retired now. They want to take the money and like have a good time and party it out in Greece. And I was like, well, if they can do that, right, they certainly could do that. But if they take that $2 million, it's more like $1.4 million probably, or maybe even less after they're done paying taxes. He goes, well, no, I know they understand that. And I'm like, yeah, but if they keep the $5 million in the exchange, right, and they go buy a new property for $5 million, and then they refinance out $1.5 million, the property still cash flows great. And 2, they can get $1.5 million in cash, not pay taxes on it, and they'll have $500,000 more of equity in that deal making the money. So yeah, it's definitely very good advice to maybe keep the money in the deal, especially if it's all cash, and then pull some cash out at the backside of it.
Right. Yeah. It just makes so much more sense that way. So again, to recap, we call this a step transaction doctrine.
Yep.
That is a part of the actual tax code that you have to be careful about taking cash out of a property that you plan on to relinquish so close to the actual exchange.
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, it's just you want to be sure that you're not taking a step to take cash out right before you sell it and do an exchange.
Okay, great. Awesome. So short but sweet, but definitely some good advice, because I know I've heard this conversation before, so I know a lot of people talk about it. Hopefully this helps them in making a wiser decision about how to handle their transaction before it comes time to do an exchange. So thanks again, Greg. Appreciate it. And we'll see you for our next episode.
Sounds good.
Great. Once again, 1031 Broker James. Be sure to like, subscribe, and comment. Greg and I will both make comments to reply to your comments, and we want feedback. So once again, thanks for visiting us with us here on QI Corner.